You're so strong. But I need my apron back.
No.
Okay, just one more tug then. What is it, little one?
Will you marry me?
Oh, you're so sweet.
A black waitress in Seoul, Jasmine Carter, never imagined that a playful joke could change her life forever. "Marry me?" a little boy shouted, tugging at her apron with a mischievous grin. Jasmine laughed, thinking it was just an innocent moment. She didn't notice the sharp eyes of his father, Korea's most powerful billionaire, silently observing her from across the café. Jasmine had struggled for years, far from home, juggling long shifts, family debts, and the constant pressure of surviving in a city where luxury and influence felt unreachable. But this encounter was different. The little boy's joke had unwittingly pulled her into a world where wealth was power, love was dangerous, and every smile could be measured and calculated. In Seoul's elite circles, appearances were everything. Families used influence like weapons, secrets were deadly, and one misstep could cost you more than money. It could cost your freedom. Jasmine had no idea that her laughter had sparked the interest of a man who never let anyone slip past him. What began as a playful moment was about to become a life-altering story of attraction, obsession, and power she never expected. If you love dark romance stories featuring Black women caught in dangerous relationships with powerful Korean billionaires, like this video, comment where you're watching from, and share this story with someone who loves suspenseful love stories. The morning shift at Café Azure had been mercifully slow. Jasmine wiped down the marble counters, her reflection blurred in the polished surface. 3 years in Seoul, and she still felt like a ghost moving through a city that barely acknowledged her existence. The café catered to the wealthy, designer handbags worth more than her yearly rent casually slung over chair backs, conversations conducted in hushed tones about mergers and acquisitions she couldn't begin to comprehend. "Nuna," the child's voice cut through her thoughts. A boy no older than 6 stood beside table 7, his school uniform immaculate, his face bright with mischief. "You're pretty. Will you marry me?" Jasmine's laughter came easily, genuine. "Oh, sweetheart, I think you're a little young for me." "I'm serious," he puffed out his chest. "I'll grow up fast, I promise." She crouched down to his level, her apron bunching at her knees. "How about we start with being friends first?" The boy's grin widened, but Jasmine felt it then, a pressure at the back of her neck, the sensation of being watched. She glanced toward the private booth in the corner, partially obscured by frosted glass panels. A man sat there, phone in hand, but his attention wasn't on the screen. His gaze was fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Even from this distance, she could sense his authority. The cut of his suit spoke of custom tailoring, the kind that cost more than most people's cars. His posture was relaxed, but there was something coiled beneath it, like a predator at rest. When their eyes met, he didn't look away. Instead, the corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been amusement. "Minjun," his voice carried across the café, low and controlled. The boy immediately straightened. "Come here." Jasmine stood as the child scampered back to the booth. She busied herself with wiping tables, but her awareness remained locked on the man and boy. She caught fragments of their conversation, the man's tone patient but firm, the boy's animated responses. Father and son, clearly. But there was something else, something in the way other patrons glanced at their table with a mixture of respect and fear. Her manager, Mrs. Kim, materialized at her elbow. "That's Kang Dojin," she whispered, her voice tight. "Do not make eye contact. Do not approach unless called. Do not." "Who is he?" Mrs. Kim's expression turned incredulous. "You really don't know? Kang Enterprises, they own half of Seoul. Real estate, technology, entertainment. His family has influence in every sector that matters." She gripped Jasmine's arm. "Be invisible. Men like that notice too much." But it was too late for invisibility. Jasmine felt it in the way her skin prickled, in the certainty that settled in her chest. Kang Dojin had already noticed her, and from the deliberate way he'd watched her interact with his son, that attention had been intentional. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. When she finally untied her apron, grateful for the sanctuary of the employee break room, she found an envelope tucked into her locker. Her name was written across it in elegant script. Inside was a business card, heavy stock, minimalist design. Kang Dojin's name, a private number, and beneath it a handwritten note, "My son has excellent taste. We should discuss his proposal properly. Dinner Friday, 8 p.m. A car will collect you." Not an invitation, an instruction. Jasmine's hands trembled as she reread the words. Every instinct screamed at her to ignore it, to throw the card away and pretend this hadn't happened. But curiosity whispered louder, tangling with the desperate hope that had kept her afloat through 3 years of struggle. What could it hurt to see what he wanted? She thought of her mother's medical bills, accumulating back home like a death sentence in slow motion. She thought of the tiny apartment she shared with 2 other women, the way she'd learned to make a single meal stretch across 3 days. She thought of how tired she was, how the weight of survival had carved grooves into her that seemed permanent. Maybe, just maybe, this was an opportunity. Or maybe it was something far more dangerous. Either way, Jasmine pocketed the card and tried to ignore the way her heart raced with equal parts fear and anticipation. The car that arrived Friday evening was a Mercedes Maybach, black as midnight and silent as a secret. The driver opened the door without speaking, and Jasmine slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her education. The interior smelled of expensive cologne and power. She'd agonized over what to wear. Her wardrobe consisted mainly of café uniforms and threadbare casual clothes. In the end, she'd chosen a simple black dress she'd bought for a job interview 2 years ago, paired with the only heels she owned that didn't have scuff marks. Looking at her reflection in the car's tinted windows, she felt absurdly out of place. The restaurant wasn't a restaurant. The car pulled up to a private residence in Hanamdong, the kind of neighborhood where security cameras outnumbered people and walls were built high enough to hide entire estates. Gates opened automatically, revealing a modern architectural masterpiece of glass and steel that seemed to glow from within. Kang Dojin met her at the entrance. Up close, he was even more imposing than she'd remembered. Tall, with sharp features that seemed carved rather than born, and eyes that missed nothing. He was younger than she'd expected, perhaps late 30s, but carried himself with the authority of someone who'd never been told no. "Ms. Carter," he offered his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and held a fraction longer than necessary. "Thank you for accepting my invitation." Did I have a choice? The words escaped before she could stop them. His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. "Always, but I'm glad you chose to come." He gestured inside. "Please." The interior was stunning, minimalist but warm, with art that Jasmine suspected was original and priceless. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline. A table was set for 2, intimate without being overtly romantic. "Where's your son?" she asked as he pulled out her chair. "With his grandmother. This conversation is between us." He settled across from her, his attention absolute. "You were kind to Minjun. Most people treat him differently when they realize who his father is." "I didn't know who his father was." "Exactly." Something shifted in his expression, satisfaction mixed with something darker. "You saw a child, not a connection to exploit." Dinner was served by silent staff who appeared and vanished like ghosts, course after course of food Jasmine couldn't name, but that melted on her tongue. Dojin was an attentive host, asking questions about her life, her family, her dreams. She found herself answering more honestly than she'd intended, the wine and his surprising warmth loosening her guard. "My mother has stage 3 breast cancer," she heard herself say. "The treatments aren't covered by insurance. That's why I'm here. I can send money home, help with the bills." "And your father?" "Gone. He left when I was 12. She met his eyes. "So I know what it's like for a boy to grow up without complete family. Minjun seems happy, though." "His mother died in childbirth." Dojin's voice remained steady, but pain flickered across his features. "I've done my best, but he needs more than a father who works 70-hour weeks can provide." The implication hung between them, unspoken but clear. "Is that why I'm here?" Jasmine asked carefully. "You need a nanny." "No," He leaned back, studying her with that unnerving intensity. I need someone genuine in a world of calculated moves. Someone who sees Minjun as a child, not a pawn. Someone who, he paused, choosing his words. Someone who interests me in ways I haven't felt in years. The air seemed to thicken. Jasmine's pulse quickened. Mr. Kang. Dajin. Dajin. His name felt strange on her tongue, too intimate. I don't understand what you're asking. I'm asking you to consider becoming part of my life. And Minjun's. He stood, moving to the window. Against the backdrop of Seoul's lights, he looked like a king surveying his kingdom. I can make your financial worries disappear. Your mother's treatment, your living situation, your future, all of it becomes manageable. In return, you give me your time, your attention, your presence. That sounds like I'm being bought. He turned, his expression hardening. Let me be clear, Jasmine. In my world, everything is a transaction. Love, loyalty, family, all of it comes with terms and conditions. I'm offering you transparency. I'm offering you choice. But I'm also offering you a warning. He closed the distance between them, stopping just shy of her personal space. Once you enter my world, leaving becomes complicated. People will watch you, judge you, test you. My enemies will see you as leverage. My family will see you as a threat. Then why would I say yes? Because I see the way you look at that skyline, like you're drowning and it's the surface you can't quite reach. His voice softened, became almost gentle. I can give you air. I can give you power. I can give you a life where you're not just surviving. He extended his hand. The question is, are you brave enough to take it? Jasmine stared at his outstretched palm, her mind racing. Every rational thought screamed at her to refuse, to walk away, to preserve what little safety she had. But desperation was its own kind of courage, and she'd been desperate for so long. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, and she felt the trap spring shut even as something like hope ignited in her chest. The transformation happened overnight. Jasmine woke in her cramped apartment on Saturday morning to find a moving crew already boxing her belongings. A woman in a sleek suit introduced herself as Secretary Yoon and explained that Ms. Carter's new accommodations were ready. By Sunday afternoon, Jasmine stood in a furnished apartment in Gangnam that made her previous living situation look like a closet. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a bathroom with a soaking tub. The view alone would have cost a fortune. A wardrobe had been stocked with clothes in her exact size, designer labels she'd only seen on celebrities. How did he know my measurements? She'd asked Secretary Yoon. The woman's smile was polite, impenetrable. Mr. Kang is thorough. Monday brought a new phone, a credit card with no limit, and a schedule. Breakfast with Minjun at 7 a.m. Accompany him to school. Lunch with Dajin at 1 p.m. Evening family time at 6 p.m. Her life had been carved into blocks, each one owned by the man who'd promised her freedom through captivity. But it was Tuesday when Jasmine truly understood what she'd agreed to. She arrived at Kang Enterprises headquarters, a gleaming tower that scraped the sky, and was escorted to the executive floor. Dajin's office occupied the entire top level, glass walls offering a 360-degree view of Seoul. He stood at his desk, flanked by men in identical dark suits, their expressions hard. Jasmine, he didn't look up from the documents he was signing. Come here. She approached, aware of the other men's eyes on her, assessing, calculating. Dajin finally glanced up, his gaze traveling over her new clothes, a tailored dress in deep burgundy that clung in ways her old wardrobe never had. Acceptable, he said, and she wasn't sure if he meant her appearance or something else. He dismissed the men with a wave. When they were alone, his demeanor shifted, became less CEO and more something she couldn't quite name. How are you settling in? It's overwhelming. You'll adjust. He moved to a sitting area, gesturing for her to join him. I have a gala tomorrow night. You'll accompany me. I don't know how to. You'll learn. He pulled out a tablet, showed her photos of elegant couples at glittering events. Seoul's elite social scene is a battlefield dressed in evening gowns and champagne. People will smile at you while calculating your weaknesses. They'll befriend you to get closer to me. You need to understand this isn't a fairy tale. Then what is it? His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something raw beneath his controlled exterior. It's survival, for both of us. Over the following weeks, Jasmine discovered the truth in his words. Minjun's grandmother arrived unannounced, a woman of steel wrapped in Chanel, who looked at Jasmine like she was a stain on the family carpet. "My grandson deserves better than a foreigner playing house," she'd said in perfect English, her smile venomous. Dajin's business associates were worse, men who spoke around her as if she were furniture, women who asked invasive questions disguised as concern. "How did you meet? What do you do? Isn't the age difference difficult?" Each inquiry a probe for weakness. But there were other moments, unexpected and disarming. Minjun climbing into her lap during movie night, his small body trusting against hers. Dajin working late into the night, and she'd bring him coffee to find him surrounded by papers, exhaustion carved into his face. He'd look up at her arrival, something softening in his expression. "You don't have to do this," he'd said one of those nights. "Do what?" "Take care of me. That wasn't part of our arrangement." She'd set the coffee down, studied him in the dim light. "Maybe I want to." The air between them had charged electric. He'd stood, closed the distance, his hand coming up to cup her face. "Be careful, Jasmine. Wanting things in my world comes with consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Instead of answering, he'd kissed her, slow, deliberate, claiming. When he pulled back, his thumb traced her bottom lip. "The kind that make it impossible to leave." That kiss became the first of many. Stolen moments in hallways, in his car between meetings, in the quiet of his home after Minjun was asleep. The attraction between them was a living thing, fed by proximity and danger, and the intoxicating sense that they were both falling into something neither could control. Jasmine learned the geography of his body, the scar on his shoulder from a childhood accident, the tension he carried in his jaw that only released when she touched him. She learned his mind, too, the way he strategized 3 moves ahead, how he saw people as puzzles to solve. His intelligence was dizzying, his focus absolute. But she also learned his capacity for control. He knew where she was at all times. Her phone was monitored. Her friends, what few she'd made in Seoul, suddenly became unavailable, though Secretary Yoon insisted it was coincidence. Jasmine started to feel the golden bars of her cage, beautiful but unyielding. "Why do you need to know everything?" she demanded after discovering tracking software on her phone. His answer was simple, chilling. "Because in my position, the people I care about become targets. I won't lose someone else He'd stopped himself, but the implication hung heavy between them. The revelation came during a dinner with Dajin's family, a monthly obligation he'd warned her about but that nothing could have truly prepared her for. The Kang estate made his personal residence look modest, a sprawling traditional hanok updated with modern luxury. Seated around the table were Dajin's mother, his 2 brothers, their wives, and an assortment of relatives who regarded Jasmine with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Dajin's mother, Madame Kang, presided over the meal like a queen holding court. Unlike her daughter who'd been openly cruel, the matriarch was subtle, her questions surgical strikes disguised as polite conversation. "Jasmine, dear, your Korean has improved, though I imagine it's difficult coming from such a different background." Smile. "Tell me, what does your family do?" "My mother was a teacher before she became ill." "Oh, how unfortunate. And your father?" Jasmine felt Dajin's hand find hers under the table, a warning or comfort she couldn't tell. "I don't know. He left when I was young." "How sad." Madame Kang's expression didn't change, but something sharp entered her eyes. "Family stability is so important, don't you think? Especially when children are involved." The implication was clear. Jasmine opened her mouth to respond, but Dajin's youngest brother, Jihoon, cut in. "Mother, perhaps we could discuss something more pleasant." "I'm simply getting to know the woman living with my grandson," Madame Kang replied smoothly. She turned to Jasmine. "You understand, of course, that Minjun's well-being is our primary concern. He's the heir to the Kang legacy. His upbringing must be carefully managed." "I care about Minjun," Jasmine said firmly. "I'm sure you do, but caring isn't the same as being appropriate. Madam Kang set down her chopsticks. Dajin, perhaps it's time you explain the situation to Ms. Carter properly. The room fell silent. Jasmine turned to Dajin, whose expression had gone carefully blank. What situation? He met his mother's gaze, something passing between them, a battle of wills Jasmine couldn't decipher. Finally, he spoke. My family has been negotiating a strategic marriage for me. With the Lee family, their daughter, Yoonji, would unite two of Korea's most powerful business empires. The words hit like physical blows. Jasmine's hand slipped from his. What? It's been in discussion for years, he continued, his voice flat. Since before I met you. Then what am I? Her voice cracked. What is this? Madam Kang answered for him. A distraction, a phase, something my son needed to work through before accepting his responsibilities. She smiled, and it was the cruelest expression Jasmine had ever seen. Surely you didn't think this was real, that you could actually be part of this family. Jasmine stood, her chair scraping loudly. The room spun, fury and humiliation burning through her chest. Dajin. He looked at her then, and for the first time since they'd met, she couldn't read him. His face was a mask, impenetrable. Sit down, Jasmine. Tell me she's lying. Sit down. The command in his voice was absolute, the tone he probably used in boardrooms to make grown men crumble. But Jasmine had survived too much to crumble now. She walked out, ignoring the family's murmurs, ignoring Secretary Yoon's attempts to stop her. She made it to the garden before Dajin caught up, his hand closing around her wrist. Let me explain. Explain what? That I was a fool, that everything you said was manipulation. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. It wasn't manipulation. His control finally cracked, emotion flooding his features. My family controls everything, my business, my social standing, my access to Minjun. If I don't do what they want, they can take my son from me. Do you understand? They have that power. So you used me, bought yourself time. No, he pulled her closer, his grip almost desperate. I bought us time, because the moment I saw you with Minjun, the moment you laughed at his proposal, something changed. I'd been going through the motions, accepting my fate. Then you appeared, and suddenly I wanted something different. Wanting isn't enough. I know, his voice dropped. That's why I have a plan. If this story has you hooked, tap like, comment whose side you're on, and subscribe for more Black woman. Korean billionaire dark romance stories full of suspense, love, and danger. Dajin's plan was as calculated as everything else about him, and just as dangerous. He explained it in his study that night. Jasmine curled in a chair across from him, her defenses still raised but her curiosity winning. The Lee family wants access to Kang Enterprises' technology division. My family wants the Lee's political connections. It's a transaction, nothing more. He poured them both whiskey, his movements precise. But transactions require both parties to hold value. If I can prove the Lee's finances are compromised, that their political influence is waning, the deal becomes worthless. Can you prove that? His smile was sharp. I can prove anything given enough time and resources. The question is whether you're willing to help me. How? The Lees are hosting a charity gala next week. Yoonji will be there, along with her father and their key associates. I need information from his office, specific files that prove their latest venture is built on fraudulent investments. He met her eyes. You're the only person no one would suspect. You're not part of my business. You're just the foreign woman I'm seeing beneath everyone's notice. You want me to steal documents. I want you to photograph them. Secretary Yoon will handle the rest. He leaned forward. I know I'm asking a lot. I know you have every reason to refuse. But if we succeed, my family loses their leverage. I can refuse the marriage. We can. He stopped, as if the words were too dangerous to speak. We can what, Dajin? We can choose our own path. The weight of possibility hung between them. Jasmine thought of Minjun, of the life they'd been building, of the way her heart had learned to reach for Dajin's presence. She thought of his kisses, his rare smiles, the vulnerability he showed only her. She thought of being brave. I'll do it. The gala was a glittering affair at a Seoul hotel that probably cost more per night than Jasmine's old yearly rent. She wore a gown Dajin had selected, emerald silk that made her skin glow, and arrived on his arm to a sea of flashbulbs and whispered speculation. The Seoul elite studied her with renewed interest now that the engagement rumors had surfaced. Yoonji Lee was beautiful in the way of a perfectly cut diamond, cold, precise, expensive. She greeted Dajin with familiar ease, barely glancing at Jasmine. Dajin Oppa, it's been too long. We should discuss the merger terms soon. Father is eager to finalize arrangements. Of course, Dajin replied smoothly, perhaps after the dinner service. As the evening progressed, Jasmine played her role perfectly, the decorative companion, slightly out of place, nursing champagne and making small talk. When Dajin gave her the signal, she excused herself to the restroom, then slipped through the service corridors Secretary Yoon had mapped out. Lee's temporary office was on the second floor, guarded but not heavily. Who would be bold enough to infiltrate during his own event? Jasmine's hands shook as she picked the lock with tools Secretary Yoon had provided, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure someone would hear. Inside, she worked quickly, photographing documents spread across his desk, financial records that even her untrained eye could see were suspicious. She was nearly finished when voices echoed in the hallway. Shouldn't be here, a man's voice, sharp with concern. I needed to retrieve something, Lee's voice closer. Jasmine's blood turned to ice. The office had no other exit. She was trapped. The door handle turned. Then Dajin's voice cut through, loud and commanding. Mr. Lee, there you are. We need to discuss the technology transfer terms immediately. My board has concerns. A pause, now during the gala. These things can't wait, you understand. Not a question. Footsteps retreated. Jasmine waited, pulse racing until her phone buzzed. A text from Dajin, clear, move now. She escaped back to the gala on shaking legs, finding Dajin surrounded by business associates. When his eyes found hers across the room, the relief in them was palpable. She touched her clutch, the signal that she'd succeeded. Everything happened quickly after that. Within 48 hours, news broke of the Lee family's fraudulent investments. By the end of the week, their political allies had distanced themselves. The proposed merger dissolved, and with it, any leverage Dajin's family held over his personal life. But victory came with consequences. Madame Kang confronted them at Dajin's residence, her composure shattered. You humiliated us. You destroyed an alliance years in the making. For what? For her. For my choice, Dajin replied, his arm around Jasmine's waist. Something you've never allowed me. You're a fool. She'll leave you the moment something better comes along. People like her always do. Jasmine stepped forward. People like me? You mean people who actually care about your son, about your grandson? I'm not going anywhere. We'll see. Madame Kang's smile was icy. This family has ways of removing problems, remember that. The threat was clear, but Dajin pulled Jasmine closer, his voice steel. If anyone touches her, the entire Kang Empire will learn exactly how this family operates. Every secret, every dirty deal, every skeleton, try me. Mother and son stared at each other, two wills equally matched. Finally, Madame Kang turned and left, her departure feeling less like retreat and more like regrouping. When they were alone, Dajin turned to Jasmine, cupping her face in his hands. I meant what I said. I'll burn it all down before I let anyone hurt you. That's terrifying and romantic in equal measure. That's us. He kissed her, deep and claiming. I love you, Jasmine Carter. I think I have since a little boy asked you to marry him and you looked at him like he mattered. I love you too, she smiled against his lips, though your family is going to make our lives hell. Probably, he grinned, that rare expression that transformed his face. Good thing we're both stubborn. 3 months later, Jasmine stood in Dajin's kitchen, teaching Minjun how to make pancakes. The boy wore an apron 3 sizes too big, flour dusting his nose, as he carefully poured batter onto the griddle. Like this, Nuna. Perfect. She ruffled his hair, and he beamed up at her with a smile that still made her heart ache with affection. Dajin emerged from his home office, loosening his tie. The past months had been a battle, his family pushing back at every opportunity, business rivals trying to exploit the public drama, media speculation about the mysterious black woman who'd stolen Korea's most eligible bachelor. But they'd weathered it together, building something real in the chaos. "Breakfast for dinner?" he asked, wrapping his arms around Jasmine's waist from behind. Minjun's request. She leaned back into his embrace, solid and warm. "Can Jasmine Nuna stay forever?" Minjun asked, his voice serious. "Like officially." Dajin and Jasmine exchanged glances. They'd been careful with Minjun, taking things slowly, making sure he understood the changes in their relationship. But the boy was perceptive, seeing what they'd been dancing around. "Would you like that?" Dajin asked his son carefully. "Yes, then she can really be my family." Minjun's eyes shone. "You can really get married, like I said." Jasmine's breath caught. They hadn't discussed marriage explicitly, though the weight of it had been present in every major decision. Her officially moving in, her name added to Minjun's emergency contacts at school, the way Dajin introduced her now not as his girlfriend, but as the woman I'm building a life with. Dajin turned her in his arms, his expression serious but warm. "He has a point. We've done everything backward, living together, raising a child, facing down my family. Maybe it's time we made it official." He pulled a box from his pocket, and Jasmine's heart stuttered. "Dajin, I'm not asking because it's expected or because it makes business sense. I'm asking because every morning I wake up and you're the first thing I want to see. Because Minjun lights up when you walk in a room. Because you've made a house feel like a home." He opened the box, revealing a ring, elegant, unique, unmistakably chosen specifically for her. "Marry me, Jasmine, for real this time." "That's not fair," she whispered, tears blurring her vision. "I can't say no to both of you." "Then say yes," Minjun piped up, completely invested in the moment. Jasmine looked at them, this man who'd terrified her and captivated her in equal measure, this child who'd stolen her heart with a joke, and realized that somewhere in the chaos and danger and impossible circumstances, she'd found exactly what she'd been searching for. Not rescue, not security, but partnership. Love that challenged her, demanded everything, and gave back just as much. "Yes," she said, and Dajin's smile was brighter than she'd ever seen it. He slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her thoroughly while Minjun made exaggerated gagging noises before dissolving into giggles. That night, after Minjun was asleep and they lay tangled together in bed, Dajin traced patterns on her skin. "You know this won't be easy. My family will fight this." "I know. There will be more battles, more people trying to tear us apart." "I know that too." He rolled over, pinning her beneath him, his eyes intense. "Good, because I'm not letting you go, ever. You understand that." Jasmine pulled him down for a kiss, her answer clear in the way she held him, claimed him right back. "I wouldn't want you to." Outside, Seoul glittered in the darkness, a city of ambition and power and secrets. But here, in this moment, Jasmine Carter had everything she needed. 6 weeks after the engagement, Jasmine discovered 2 things that would change everything. The first was the pregnancy test, positive, sitting on the bathroom counter with its irrefutable double lines. The second was the envelope that arrived at their door, addressed to her in elegant script. Inside was a single photograph, her mother, outside the hospital in Chicago, a man in a dark suit visible in the background. On the back, a message in Korean that she had to translate. "Everything you love can disappear. Make the right choice." No signature, no demands, just the threat clear and cold. Jasmine's hand moved to her stomach, protective instinct already flaring. She looked at the photo again, at her mother's unknowing smile, at the shadow of danger in the frame. Downstairs, she could hear Dajin and Minjun laughing about something. Her family, her life. And someone wanted to take it all away. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. A text, "We should meet. Alone, if you care about the people in this photo." Jasmine's fingers tightened on the device. She thought of telling Dajin, of letting him handle it. But the message was clear. This was about her, about choices only she could make. She texted back, when and where. The response was immediate. Tomorrow. Come alone or your mother pays the price. Jasmine deleted the messages, her mind racing. She touched her stomach again, this secret life growing inside her, and made a decision. Tomorrow, she would face whatever was coming. Tomorrow, she would protect her family. But tonight, she would hold Dajin close and memorize the feeling of safety, because she had a terrible suspicion that everything was about to change. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more Black woman and Korean billionaire dark romance stories set in Seoul.